The year was 1978, 3 years after Mr. Arthur Davies retired. A different man, Mr. Sam Albright, found himself standing on Indian soil. But his journey was the reverse of Arthur's. Sam was an engineer, not a teacher, sent by a small British firm in 1965 to oversee a hydraulic dam project in Rajasthan. He was 35, newly married, and full of the casual confidence of an expatriate on a temporary assignment. India, however, was not temporary. It became his landscape, his challenge, and eventually his heart. He stayed on after the project finished, establishing a small consultancy in Pune, specializing in sustainable irrigation. His wife, weary of the heat and the distance from home, returned to England in 1972, a quiet departure that left a hollow echo in their small bungalow. Sam stayed. He had stopped thinking of India as the field and started thinking of it as home. His integration was deep. He spoke Hindi fluently, celebrated Diwali with his employees, and had invested every rupee he owned into his local business. Yet the nation still saw him as an outsider. The first major obstacle arrived in 1978, a sudden change in foreign residency and investment policy. It was a tightening of the bureaucratic knot designed to encourage native industry, which Sam wholeheartedly supported, but which caught his small firm in a dangerous vice. The new regulations demanded that any business with over a certain percentage of foreign equity must drastically restructure, dilute its foreign ownership, or face severe restrictions on operations and capital repatriation. Sam's business, being 100% owned by him, a British citizen, was immediately flagged. The local administration, though sympathetic, was bound by the new FERA laws. Sam, who had never bothered with complex legal structures, found his bank accounts frozen. He could not access his capital to pay his 15 employees, nor could he sign contracts for his dam maintenance projects. It wasn't malice, it was procedure. His identity as a successful, contributing business owner was suddenly superseded by his status as a non-resident foreigner operating within a newly protectionist economy. He spent months cycling between the Pune district offices and the Reserve Bank of India, clutching thick files filled with permits and applications. Each office demanded a different stamp, a different affidavit, a different form in triplicate. His employees, loyal but unpaid, offered to work for free, but Sam, proud and ethical, refused. He knew that if he couldn't resolve this issue, his life's work would collapse, and his journey, his choice to stay, would be invalidated by a stack of government papers. He realized his love for India was not enough. He needed a formal legal commitment. He needed to find a way to become truly Indian, not just in spirit, but on paper. The threads of his life began to unravel, piece by piece, as the legal maze tightened around him.
Sam's immediate crisis required legal surgery, not engineering genius. He needed to formally transform his status from a struggling foreign investor to an overseas citizen of India, OCI, or even more definitively, pursue naturalized citizenship. However, he quickly discovered that simply wanting to be Indian was not the same as qualifying to be Indian under the rigorous standards of the Constitution and the Citizenship Act of 1955. The local lawyer he hired, a meticulous elderly man named Mr. Shinde, laid out the harsh truth. Naturalization required him to demonstrate 12 years of documented, proven residency in India, which included a specific continuous 12 months immediately preceding the application. Sam had been in India for 13 years, well over the requirement, but the paperwork proving his continuous residency was scattered, lost to time and carelessness. Furthermore, the application demanded that he formally renounce his British citizenship, a step he was fully prepared to take, but one that demanded finality and immense bureaucratic proof. The FERA crisis had already stalled his entire business, but this new citizenship obstacle now threatened his complete existence and stability. Mr. Shinde advised a strategic, temporary fix. Sam could legally transfer the majority shareholding of his company, Albright Hydraulics, to a trusted, loyal Indian partner. This move would instantly comply with the restrictive FERA regulations, unfreeze the accounts, and allow his dedicated employees to finally be paid. This was a massive emotional and professional hurdle. For 15 years, the company had been his purpose, his identity, his contribution to his adopted nation. Handing over the majority control, even nominally, felt like handing over his life. After much deliberation, he chose his foreman, Vikas, a man who had been with him since the initial dam days and who understood the engineering and ethics of the business as well as Sam did. Vikas reluctantly accepted the majority share transfer. The transfer, executed precisely through the local registrar and filed with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, MCA, was legally watertight. The FERA restrictions immediately lifted, the bank accounts were unblocked, and a powerful wave of relief washed over Sam's employees. The business was saved, but Sam's role was fundamentally changed. He was now a minority partner, a foreign technical consultant in his own firm. While the business stabilized under Vikas's capable, though temporary stewardship, Sam threw himself into the monumental task of compiling the residency proof for his citizenship application. He needed utility bills, rent agreements, old tax receipts, and notarized affidavits dating all the way back to 1965. The sheer volume of missing or decaying paperwork became a painful metaphor for his fragile legal status. He realized that a life lived informally, based on mutual trust and local understanding, was simply inadequate when facing the rigid, impersonal demands of national law. He had to prove his 13-year-long commitment to a nation that already felt like his soul. The paperwork became his new dam project, and this one was far more complex and personal.
The citizenship application demanded one final, deceptively simple document: formal proof that he possessed adequate knowledge of a language specified in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. Sam was effortlessly fluent in Hindi and quite conversational in Marathi, but his informal ability was legally irrelevant. The official requirement mandated a formal certification from a recognized institution. He enrolled in an intensive, government-recognized Hindi language course. This was the final, defining obstacle. He was proving his belonging through grammar and syntax. At 48, Sam found himself a nervous student again, sitting for a 3-hour written and oral examination. The irony was not lost on him. He was proving his belonging to a country he already considered home, all through a pencil and paper. Simultaneously, the Citizenship Act required him to provide a sworn affidavit, stating both his intention to reside in India permanently and confirming his good character as verified by local authorities. This affidavit, signed before a magistrate, was the emotional climax of his entire struggle. It was his final, legally binding promise to India. Finally, after 18 long months of relentless bureaucratic battles, the triumphant moment arrived. Sam's application for naturalization under the Citizenship Act 1955 was formally approved by the Ministry of Home Affairs. The decision was not based on sentiment, but on irrefutable evidence. 13 years of proven residency, a business that demonstrably contributed to the local economy, ironclad compliance with FERA via the MCA transfer, and certified language proficiency. The law which had almost destroyed him was now the very instrument of his complete and total integration. In a quiet, humble ceremony, Sam took the oath of allegiance, formally renouncing his British nationality and swearing permanent faith to the Constitution of India. The moment wasn't one of loud jubilation, but of deep, profound, and final peace. He was no longer a foreign consultant, he was a citizen. He returned to his firm, no longer a foreign minority partner, but a full Indian citizen, working shoulder to shoulder with Vikas. The legal status he had fought for meant nothing about his daily work changed, but absolutely everything about his future did. He could now purchase property freely, vote in local elections, and most importantly, live without the constant, oppressive fear of bureaucratic upheaval. His story became a quiet, enduring legend in Pune, a testament not just to one dedicated man's enduring love for a country, but to the meticulous, sometimes frustrating, yet ultimately fair and resolute process of Indian law. He proved the true commitment, backed by documentation and unwavering persistence, will always find its reward. His life was the ultimate equation solved. Love plus law equals home.